Good evening and welcome to Athens City Council. It's Monday night, March 19th at 7 p.m. And tonight we have two components to our meeting. The first one will be a public hearing for what's our Community Development Block Grant Program, sometimes referred to as CDBG. And the purpose of this hearing tonight is so that we can give residents an opportunity to review and comment on the city's application and their proposed activities. By way of background information, in previous years, we have conducted such repairs as a slip on Grosvenor Street. I believe that was in 2011. We had Columbus Road and Lancaster Street improvements in 2012. We had the Richland House, preparing that to be a low-income rental in 2013. And then in 2014, we did the depot lift station. So those are some of our previous programs. What we're having the public hearing for tonight are two grant components. One is the program allocation grant. And for this year, the proposal would be for the Kimes Reservoir. And that was constructed in 1968. It's in need of some repairs. That reservoir supplies much of the water to the south side of our community, so it needs some repair and rehabilitation. And then the other project that we're thinking of for the other critical infrastructure one is for a piece of equipment for our wastewater treatment plant. And what this piece of equipment would do is dewater our sludge. And that sludge from the wastewater treatment plant then, after that process, is spread out on fields, land that is leased. So right now what we're doing with it is that we contract out for that piece of equipment, the sludge dewaterer. And so this program would potentially allow us to purchase the equipment so that we'd own it ourselves and save costs for the city long term. So we do have a sign-in sheet that's circulating around the room. And as part of our component to verify that we did have the public hearing and have described these projects, we need you to sign in that you are here at the public hearing. That will help us for documentation that we need for these funds. And is there anybody that has any comments? Anybody from the public that would like to speak to this tonight? And Councilmember Reisner, yes, Councilmembers too. I just want to
point out the Kimes Reservoir serves over 7,500 people in that area. Okay. And I think it's a pretty important project to make sure that they all have adequate water, both for household use and for public safety.
Sure. Good point. Yes, Mayor Patterson.
Yeah, I do want to point out, this has been inspected, the reservoir. It's not like there's a critical failure that's imminent with this, but what we do need to do, exterior patching, some crack filling, the roof sealing, and some miscellaneous mechanical work on the Kimes Reservoir, and to kind of dovetail on what Councilmember Reisner was saying is that it's a $1 million gallon capacity reservoir, so it's a significant reservoir on the south side of the city.
Okay. Any other comments, questions from either council members or the public? Well, I thank you for being here for the public hearing, and we'll consider that portion of the meeting closed at 7:05 p.m. And do please make sure that you've signed in on our sign-in sheet for that. We'll now move forward to the other portion of our regular business meeting. The first item being to establish a quorum. All members of council are present tonight. Our next item is the disposition of the minutes for the regular session held on March 5th. So I would I'm sorry, Councilmember Fall is not here. I apologize. So we do have a quorum, but one of our council members is missing. So I would now entertain a motion for approval of the minutes for the regular session held on March 5th.
So moved.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and second for approval of those minutes. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Okay, and those minutes have been approved. We now have an opportunity for communications. Do council members have any communications that they want to share? Any from any council members? Okay. We would have reports then and communications from other elected officials. Law Director Eliason. Okay. And Auditor Hecht is not here at the moment. Oh, there she is, Auditor Hecht. Do you have any report or communications?
Just a brief update on our income tax lawsuit. We should know in about 3 weeks whether we're going to get an injunction. If you remember, I told you last time that that judge dismissed everything, so now we're in the appeal process, and starting that process, we're also asking for an injunction, and we should know in about 3 weeks. We are working on language if we have to change our ordinance. But we're kind of waiting for Columbus to get a draft together and information from other entities to try to pull that together. But we're also kind of waiting for the injunction before we try to bring anything forward in case we get that, and then we won't want to move forward with changing our code until we get a final decision.
And by way of background, this is the lawsuit of which Athens is a part, joining in with several other cities, and this is about the centralized collection of income taxes, which would have implications for our local income tax.
Yes.
Right. Okay, thank you very much for the update. Mayor Patterson.
I have several items. There will be a street closure. It's going to be tomorrow, March 20th, from 8 a.m. to 4 p.m. It's the western side of Tulane, off of East State Street. So be cognizant of that. It's for a sanitary tap installation. Also, coming up soon, there's going to be an open house. The Richland Avenue Stop and Cop Bridge is what we're referring to it as. It's the bridge that is right in front of Stop and Cop near Hocking Valley Bank on Richland Avenue. There will be an open house Tuesday, March 3rd from 3:30 to 6 p.m. at the OUN, the Gilbreth Room. So for anyone who wants to learn more about that bridge repair.
You probably mean April 3rd.
I'm sorry, what did I say?
March.
I did mean April 3rd, April 3rd, thank you. Yeah, it happened already. Sorry about that, April 3rd. Thank you, Member McGee. Couple other things, just some updates on street patchwork, pothole filling. There's going to be a water pothole repair taking place this week. It will be West State Street, Central Avenue, and Woodside, where there were water line breaks and holes had to be dug. So that's going to be taking place, as well as pothole filling on Stimson, Mill, Shannon, and May, and other pothole or water line break hole filling is going to be State and Morris and South Shannon. So, and Engineering and Public Works has really sped up its cycle of going around and continually monitoring and patching holes as they identify them. It's always helpful if citizens also use our city source and make note of potholes that they see and send them on to Engineering and Public Works as well. The last item that I have is this Sunday. This is March, Member McGee, March 25th at 3 p.m. in the Templeton Blackburn Alumni Memorial Auditorium. Our Town, the next documentary is Our Town, Athens, Ohio. So it's a documentary film. We encourage people, it's free to all, if you want to come and be there for the premiere screening of the show, telling the story of our city. So,
great, thank you very much. We'll now move on to ordinances for third reading. The first one is Ordinance 2018, an ordinance authorizing the Service Safety Director to enter into an LPA state project agreement with the Ohio Department of Transportation for a bridge deck overlay project on US 33 and declaring an emergency, introduced by Councilmember Kotsis.
President Nisley, thank you. I would like to make a motion to approve 0-2018.
Do you have a second?
Second.
Thank you.
And just a brief recount of this. This is ODOT is doing a bridge overlayment project on US 33. It just so happens that the bridge happens to be in our city limits. It is the overpass on 33 where the railroad line used to be, just past East State Street, and that's 100% paid for by ODOT. They just need us to pass this.
Okay, great. We have a motion and second for approval of ordinance 2018. Are there any additional comments or questions from council members or administration? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion carries and the ordinance is approved. Ordinance 2118 is an ordinance closing a portion of Court Street between Union and Washington on Saturday, August 4th, 2018, from 8 a.m. to midnight for the Bounty on the Bricks fundraiser. And this is introduced by Councilmember Katsas.
Thank you. I'd like to make a motion to approve ordinance 02118.
Second.
And once again, this is for the Bounty on the Bricks, which will be held Saturday, August 4th. And the street closure is going to happen from 8 a.m. to midnight. And this is a fundraiser done by, that's put on by Ohio Health, raising money for HAPCAP.
We have a motion and second for approval of 2118. Are there any other comments or questions? Okay. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. The motion carries and the ordinance is approved. Ordinance 2218 is an ordinance suspending the enforcement of Athens City Code, Chapter 11.04, vending, peddling, and soliciting, to allow vending in a designated area on August 4th, 2018 during the Bounty on the Bricks fundraiser. This is introduced by Councilmember Katsas.
President Nisley, thank you. I'd like to make a motion to approve ordinance 02218.
Second.
And this is just the sister ordinance of the that needs to follow so that Bounty on the Bricks is able to serve dinner and do what they want to do during their fundraiser.
Okay. We have a motion and second for approval of ordinance 2218. Any other comments or questions? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion carries and the ordinance is approved. Ordinance 2318 is an ordinance authorizing design engineering of the Stimson Avenue Improvements Project, number 315. This is introduced by Councilmember McGee.
Yes, I'd like to make a motion to approve this ordinance. What it is an ordinance authorizing the expenditure of certain monies for the engineering of a rather large project on Stimson Avenue, which would be, I believe, started in 2020, I believe. At any rate, the ordinance itself would authorize the amount of up to $200,000 to be appropriated from the unappropriated balance to go to the Street Rehabilitation Fund. And it would authorize the expenditures of that money, particularly for the engineering services only, is my understanding.
We have a motion and second for approval of ordinance 2318. Do I have a second. We need a second.
Second.
Thank you. Any other comments or questions? Yes, Councilmember Katsas.
Just as a reminder, I'm sure everybody knows I will be abstaining from this vote.
Got it. Okay, thank you for the reminder. All right, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay, and one abstention. Thank you.
Thank you.
Motion carries. The ordinance is approved. Ordinance 2418 is an ordinance amending the 2018 appropriation ordinance, amending ordinance 15317, authorizing Arts West renovations project number 314, and declaring an emergency. This is introduced by Councilmember Butler.
Thank you, President Isley. I'd like to make a motion to adopt ordinance 2418.
Second.
Thank you. Simply, this is authorizing the City Service Safety Director to expend up to $196,000 for the updates required at Arts West, some of which include ADA accessibility and improvements to the basement.
Okay.
Thank you.
We have a motion and second for approval of ordinance 2418. Any other comments or questions? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. The motion carries and the ordinance is approved. Ordinance 2518 is an ordinance amending the 2018 appropriation ordinance, and this is introduced by Council Member Butler.
Thank you, President Eisen. I'd like to make a motion to adopt ordinance 2518.
Second.
Thank you. Again, quite simply, this is specifically at Arts West, looking at construction for an accessibility ramp. We know there's many challenges with the building and ADA requirements, so this would be specific to that, up to $40,000. Thank you.
We have a motion and second for approval of ordinance 2518. Any other comments or questions? Okay. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. The motion carries and the ordinance is approved. Ordinance 2618 is an ordinance authorizing the mayor to hire a new director of engineering and public works at a pay rate of 35% through the assigned pay grade. This is introduced by the Finance and Personnel Committee.
Thank you, Madam President. I make a motion that we adopt 2618.
Second.
The title is exactly the same wording as the ordinance itself. It's self-explanatory. I have nothing more to add unless the mayor has anything.
Okay. We have a motion and second for approval of ordinance 2618. Are there any other comments or questions? Councilmember Katsas.
Yes, thank you. This one, I've struggled with this one, even though it's not a lot of money. And I would say that ultimately, you know, I feel that it's not because of the candidate. I believe the candidate is worthy of this pay raise, or pay increase of 10% above what the mayor is allowed to do. But what I have seen, we as a council have done in the last few years, as the budgets have gone through towards the end of the year, we tend to not have a ton of discussion on the benefits packages for our non-union employees. And I do believe that this is also an additional part of the benefits package of a non-union employee, which we had a lot of discussion on. At the same time, I don't want to hold my vote back for this because of another reason, so I will be voting in favor of this, but I would like to see more discussion when we do discuss those non-benefit packages in the future. So thank you.
Okay. Yes, Councilmember McGee.
I would like to add my concern to what Councilman Katsas has said. I'm concerned where we start to shift out of the pay grades that we had adopted earlier. In this particular instance, I believe it is justified, so my concern is alleviated somewhat. I had expressed in a prior instance where I was not pleased with the deviation, but I do want to express my continued concern on that issue. So again, I would thank Member Katsas for bringing it up. Thank you.
Any other comments? Okay. All right, we have a motion and second for approval of ordinance 2618. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. The motion carries and the ordinance is approved. Ordinance 2718 is an ordinance granting use of the public right-of-way, authorizing the Service Safety Director to execute an electric line easement with the Ohio Power Company, AEP, to be located near East Park Drive at the municipal pool site and declaring an emergency. And this was to be introduced by Councilmember Fall. And so do we have another council member who would be willing to introduce that? This is basically granting an easement. I can give a little bit of background information. A line easement for the power company, and that is up near the municipal pool site and also close to the bike path and the new medical building, the Muntean Medical Building. And so we're granting that easement for the power company.
If President Nyes, if I may,
Yes,
if you'd like someone to make a motion, I can do that.
that would be very helpful.
And thank you for taking time to explain that. I was trying to deal with the technicality of bringing it up on the computer here.
Okay.
But I would like to make a motion to adopt ordinance 2718.
Do we have a second?
Second.
All those in favor, and so we have a motion and second for the approval of this ordinance. And do we have any other comments or questions? Okay.
I do have a question, I'm
Yes.
sorry. I've seen a lot of work already happening down there. Is this already happening? Is the line already being put in? Is there a, nobody knows?
I don't know.
No.
I never caught this, I don't have an answer to that.
Okay, that's fine.
Yeah,
It's a
I can
sidewalk.
certainly update you this Wednesday when we have our weekly pool update
Okay.
meeting.
All right.
Okay. We try and do these things ahead of time.
Yeah.
Doesn't always happen.
No, I know.
but we
I
do.
know. I
And
was
that's
just curious.
a valid question. All right, we have a motion and second for approval of ordinance 2718. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. The motion carries and the ordinance is approved. Ordinance 2818 is an ordinance authorizing the mayor to enter into a grant agreement with the Northeast Ohio Public Energy Council, known as NOPEC, in order to accept NOPEC energized community, what is known as the NEC grants, and declaring an emergency. And this is introduced by all members of council. And do we have somebody to speak to this? I can offer by way of background information that we are eligible to apply for grants of being part of NOPEC, and that is a council governing our aggregation, and it's part of a larger organization based in the northern part of the state, of which, by reason of our membership in it, SOPEC, Mayor Patterson serves on the board of that. So this enables us to get an energy community grants, energized community grants from NOPEC. Yes.
I'll make a motion that we adopt 2818
Okay.
Second.
Okay.
for all the reasons that the President of Council has stated.
Okay. So we have a motion and second for approval of 2818. And any other comments or questions? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. The motion carries and the ordinance is approved. Ordinance 2918 is an ordinance authorizing a contract with the Washington County Commissioners and declaring an emergency. This is introduced by Councilmember Butler.
Thank you, President Nyes. I'd like to make a motion to adopt ordinance 2918.
Second.
Thank you.
Aye.
And this is just a renewal of an agreement that we've been working with in the past with Washington County to handle our overflow prisoners in the county. Thank you.
Okay. We have a-
I believe specifically women. Thank you.
Thank you. We have a motion and second for approval of ordinance 2918. Are there any other comments or questions? Yes, Councilmember McGee?
I'm not opposed to this ordinance, but I do want to call attention of the administration to the fact that, from my experience, there are instances where rather than have prisoners transported, there are quite a few instances where there are alternative opportunities for the prisoners to be either released or released to a person, a sober person, something to that effect. And I think the city does increases our costs somewhat when we don't explore those alternatives more. Again, it's not criticism, it's just a friendly suggestion. Thank you.
Duly noted.
Okay, thank you. All right, we have a motion and second for approval of ordinance 2918. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. The motion carries and the ordinance is approved. We now have ordinances for second reading. On most of these, I will be just reading the title of it, so we have going through the second reading. One of them we will be suspending tonight. Ordinance 3018 is an ordinance authorizing the mayor to enter into a partnership agreement with the Athens County Commissioners as applicant and grantee, if funded, for submission of an application to the Office of Community Development, Ohio Development Services Agency, for the program year 2018, Community Housing Impact and Preservation Program, otherwise known as the CHIP program. And this is introduced by Councilmember Butler. Ordinance 3118 is an ordinance to accept and authorize the receipt of donations to the new municipal pool. And this is introduced by Councilmember Butler.
Thank you, President Isley. I believe we are in the position to request a suspension for the rules this evening, 3118.
I'll second.
Thank you. And my understanding is that to help expedite the process, I believe the city is already receiving donations. Is that correct?
That is correct. The city has received donations, so therefore we need to make sure that we can place those donations appropriately.
Thank you.
Okay. So we have a motion to suspend the rules. And do we have a second?
Yes, Mr. Reisner did.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. Okay. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. The rules have been suspended. Councilmember Butler.
Thank you, President Isley. At this moment, I would like to request a motion to adopt Ordinance 3118.
Second.
Thank you, Councilmember. Specifically, as the mayor alluded to as well, and we did hear from Auditor Hecht that we have been receiving donations and that they're prepared in the auditor's office as well to handle them. And this is for donations specifically to the municipal pool. And there will be a noted line for that, the Municipal Pool Recreation Fund. Thank you.
Okay. We have a motion and second for approval of Ordinance 3118. Any other comments or questions?
Just one.
Yes, Councilmember
Can the
Reisner.
auditor tell me which new line this will be?
And maybe I misspoke there about the specific line, but my understanding is, well, I'll let the auditor speak. Thank you.
No, we have added an account line in the recreation fund, which is where the pool falls under for revenue and expenses. But I can't tell you that account line offhand.
Okay.
It's near the other donation lines, which is in the 600s, I believe.
Okay.
Sorry.
You'll find out.
It'll be in our next reports.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Councilmember Patterson, or Mayor Patterson. Former Councilmember Patterson.
A while ago. I do want to point out as well that Patty Whitmer, my executive assistant, also maintains a spreadsheet. And as these come in, we're tracking them on our end. And in particular, any notes where someone may want their donation to go to a specific feature, so that we're adequately and appropriately capturing any information that comes in with these donations.
Great. Okay, thank you. Okay, we have a motion and second. All those in favor of approving Ordinance 3118 signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. The motion carries and the ordinance is approved. Ordinance 3218 is an ordinance amending the 2018 appropriation ordinance, introduced by Councilmember Reisner. Ordinance 3318 is an ordinance amending Ordinance 15117 to include the current pay grades and wage scale, introduced by Councilmember Reisner. Ordinance 3418 is an ordinance amending Ordinance 15217, Sections 20 and 21 of the Fringe Benefits Package for Non-Union Personnel, introduced by the Finance and Personnel Committee. Ordinance 3518 is an ordinance amending the 2018 part-time and seasonal staffing levels authorized by Ordinance 15117, introduced by Councilmember Reisner. And then we have ordinances for first reading. Ordinance 3618 is an ordinance authorizing the mayor to submit an application and enter into an agreement with the Ohio Development Services Agency for a Community Development Block Grant, CDBG, allocation program funds for program year 2018, introduced by Councilmember Butler.
Thank you, President Isley. To speak briefly on this, we did just have the first public hearing regarding this evening, and we spoke about this as well during committee meeting. This specific ordinance, 3618, would look at allocation program funding, which was, as noted, the efforts to rehabilitate the Kimes water reservoir. As we heard, it's a million gallon drinking water provider, and rather old. 1968 was the construction date. Thank you.
Okay, thanks. Ordinance 3718 is an ordinance authorizing the mayor to submit an application and enter into an agreement with the Ohio Development Services Agency for a Community Development Block Grant, CDBG, Critical Infrastructure Grant Program for program year 2018, introduced by Councilmember Butler.
Thank you, President Nisley. Again, similarly, we just discussed this earlier this evening with the public hearing. This is specific to the critical infrastructure and would be approximately $300,000 worth of an effort to work towards the dewatering equipment at the wastewater treatment plant. The plant currently processes an average of 2.2 to 2.7 million gallons of sludge each year.
Okay, great, thank you. Ordinance 3818 is an ordinance amending the 2018 appropriation ordinance, introduced by Councilmember Reisner.
Thank you, Madam President. Allow me to read the pertinent section. Section 1, the 2018 Appropriation Ordinance 15017 is hereby amended by appropriating from the unappropriated balance the sum of $30,000 to Storm Water Fund 755 TC 300 for professional services associated with storm water inspections and GIS mapping, and increasing the total appropriations by said amount.
Thanks. Ordinance 3918 is an ordinance waiving the residency requirement for the appointment of a new service safety director. This is introduced by all council members.
Madam President, I'll speak to it. I'll read the pertinent section. Pursuant to Ohio Revised Code Section 735.01 and 737.01, upon appointment of Andrew Stone, the residency requirement for the service safety director is hereby waived and during his employment within the city of Athens.
Okay, thank you. Mayor Patterson.
I just want to point out, and I believe this came up in committee last week, but we've gone back and researched this, and Service Safety Director Paula Horan Mosley, as you know, was given the waiver, as well as Ron Chapman and Wayne Keys. This actually goes back quite a long ways.
Great, thank you. Ordinance 4018 is an ordinance affirming the mayor's consent of the Rural Enterprise Zone Agreement approved by the County of Athens and Athens Mold and Machine and declaring an emergency. This is introduced by all council members. Councilmember Reisner.
Thank you, Madam President. I'd like to make a motion that we suspend the rules for 4018. The reasons being is that it's 2 years overdue. We should have done it 2 years ago. And essentially, it's a fait accompli at this point.
Okay. So we have a motion to suspend the rules for Ordinance 4018. And I'm sorry, do we have a second on that?
No. Second.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, we have a motion and second for suspending the rules. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. The rules have been suspended. Councilmember Reisner.
I move that we adopt 4018.
Second.
Again, 2 years ago when Athens tire molding was starting back up again, the county commissioners had to go through several legal steps to get that, and through an oversight they neglected to get our affirmation for this project because of our of property taxes. And well, the project's been going on for 2 years now, and it's time that we got our legal ducks all in a row.
Okay, thank you. We have a motion and second for approval of Ordinance 4018. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. The motion carries, and the ordinance is approved. We now have a one reading resolution, 418. It's a resolution opposing the Ohio Division of Wildlife proposed Rule 1501 31-15-17, which would allow for the trapping and killing of the Ohio native bobcat species Lynx rufus, and calling for its permanent protection for the common good of all Ohioans. This is introduced by all council members.
Thank you, Madam President. I will introduce the resolution and read it. My motivation for this resolution was I'm opposed to trapping and killing of wild game such as bobcats. I just don't think it's proper that we take a species like the bobcat, which is the mascot of Ohio University for one thing, and the fact that I like the idea that there's wild animals in the woods, and they're worth more to me alive than they are dead. So I'd like to read this resolution, which was mainly authored by Heather Cantino. I don't see her here. I believe she's may come in later, but for the most part, she had a tremendous amount of input into this, and allow me to read it. A resolution opposing the Ohio Division of Wildlife's proposed Rule 1501 31-15-17, which would allow for the trapping and killing of the Ohio native bobcat species Lynx rufus, and calling for its permanent protection for the common good of all Ohioans. Whereas the Ohio Division of Wildlife, DOW, is proposing a bobcat trap kill season that will start this fall in southeast Ohio, with a decision to be made on May 2nd by the Ohio Wildlife Council. And whereas the plan will allow an unlimited number of permits to be sold for $5 each, and whereas the species, Ohio's only native wildcat, was taken off the threatened and endangered list less than 4 years ago, and whereas the DOW itself wrote in October 2017 that, quote, the rate of expansion and the area currently occupied by bobcats as well as population size is still unknown, unquote, and the population's, quote, viability is unclear. Little is known about the density and distribution of the bobcats in Ohio, as well as the population trajectory and which areas act as a source population, unquote. And whereas the same report states, quote, such information is critical before decisions are taken on opening a trapping season and the maximum yearly take, unquote. And whereas this same Dow report states that it will take 4 years to collect and analyze data to establish population viability, and has just funded a 4-year Ohio University study to estimate abundance, density, and population viability, which will use, quote, non-invasive monitoring, unquote, not carcasses from trap kills. And whereas the OU study does not require such killing or carcass study, and whereas there may be fewer than 500 bobcats in Ohio, and whereas allowing trap killing of 40 in one critical region and 20 in a region where the population is likely not yet reproductively viable, with potentially many more than 60 to be killed before authorities can halt the killing, appears to be premature and irresponsible, given that the species is still recovering from extirpation, is poorly understood, and may already be compromised by roadkill and incidental and illegal trapping. And given that the Dow's own new bobcat management plan, page 26, cites research that says mortality rates of over 20% can impact population viability, and whereas this is a level that may have been reached by the 94 known bobcat deaths in 2017 from vehicles and incidental trapping, and whereas, according to scientists, bobcats do not overpopulate, since like all wildcats, their populations are self-regulating. And unlike rabbits, bobcats cannot take advantage of lowered population to repopulate quickly, and whereas trap killing is inhumane, and Ohio's plan particularly cruel in allowing trap killing during a season in which the kittens are out hunting and still dependent on their mothers. And whereas the mission of the Division of Wildlife is to manage wildlife for all, I'd like to stress that all. And whereas Southeast Ohio will be most directly impacted by this bobcat trap kill season and needs to be given ample time and opportunity to weigh in on the decision. and the only public hearing scheduled will be held north in Columbus. And whereas this council finds this whole plan barbaric and out of step with the 21st century wildlife management principles to protect native predators and support building a healthier ecosystem, now therefore be it resolved by the City of Athens, Ohio. Section 1, Athens City Council strongly opposes the Ohio Department of Wildlife's proposal to allow the trapping of bobcats in southeast Ohio, and hereby calls on the Ohio Division of Wildlife to cancel the proposal. Section 2, Athens City Council urges the state of Ohio to declare the bobcat a protected species and ban all hunting and trapping of this wonderful animal for all Ohioans now and in the future. Section 3, Athens City Council hereby calls on the public, our state representative Jay Stewart, and Jay Edwards, I'm sorry, my eyes are getting a little blurry here, and Governor John Kasich to contact the Division of Wildlife and voice their opposition to this proposal. Section 4, this resolution shall be in full force and effect at the earliest moment permitted by law upon its passage and approval by the mayor. And I would like to add that if we get an affirmative vote tonight, that this resolution be sent to all the concerned parties at the state level, Division of Wildlife, Wildlife Council, the governor's office, or state representative, and to anyone else who would care to have a copy.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
So we have a motion.
Second.
And a second for approval of Resolution 418. Any other comments or questions? Yes,
I would
Councilmember
like
Gay.
to just comment and say I strongly support the resolution as a person who enjoys nature photography and as someone who believes that there is a great deal of tourism and finances dependent upon nature photography. I think that the kind of narrow-minded proposal by the ODNR, which would lead to the trapping of the bobcats, is detrimental to the economic well-being of Athens as well as being barbaric. So I do support this. Thank you.
Okay, thanks. All right. So we have motion and second.
Is there
And does anybody else in the audience have any comments?
public comments?
Yes, come on up, please. And if you'll just announce your name and if you're representing a group, and you have 3 minutes.
Hi everyone, my name is Rachel Martin and I'm an environmental studies major at OU and I'm representing the Bobcats for Bobcats group. We strongly support this resolution that's being proposed today. He touched on a lot of the great points with the quota being 60 bobcats specifically in southeastern Ohio, yet the meeting to talk about this issue is being held in Columbus, so we're asking that more meetings are held in the area that it would actually impact. And these 500 verified sightings are from trail cameras and the dead bobcats that they find on the road, but they have no evidence that these are not different bobcats going across the large range that they may have. So we've been working on campus, and we have over 2,000 people in the community that have signed a petition against ODNR's proposal, and about 350 students, staff, and alumni have also supported denying this proposal from ODNR. And he did mention some of the management plans contradictions to if they were ready to open up a season. And I have a copy of their summary of 2017, the observations of bobcat sightings in Ohio. And they said, quote, in 2008, trail camera photographs became the primary source of sightings. And it's likely that the growing popularity of trail camera sightings is due to the decline of their cost and the increase of the number of trail cameras available. Therefore, source of data should be interpreted with caution. And the decline of the number in sightings in 2016 is likely due to the decreased interest of reporting in sightings due to the change in status and subsequent delisting. However, the increase in 2017 may be due to the increased effort by the divisions to solicit bobcat sightings from the public through the Wildlife Sightings website. So these numbers are not scientifically backed by having genetic and DNA sampling to make sure that they're different bobcats. And the sightings could be increased due to various amounts of reasons that are not yet approved to be able to open a season. And this management plan was only in 2017, so having less than 1 year of data from this, we find that it's premature and not scientifically backed to open up a season.
Thank you. Thanks for the comments. Thank you. All right. Okay, any other comments? Okay, we have a motion and second for approval of the resolution. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. The motion carries and the resolution is approved and will be forwarded on. The next item of business is announcements and other business. Any announcements from council members? Mayor, did you have any announcements?
No,
Okay.
other than committees.
Committees?
Transportation, as well as finance and personnel. At this point, I don't know whether,
Safety and safety services.
We do, okay, thank you. Okay, I'll make a request, thank you.
And okay. And we may need planning and development. Let's check. While we're on the topic of committees, I do have a brief announcement to make about our format for committee meeting nights that I have shared with council members and the administration. We will continue to have our committee meetings on the second and fourth Mondays, as described in our rules. It's that on these particular meeting nights, what you'll see is a slightly different appearance up front here, where when we are having a specific committee meeting, it will be those members of council who represent that, who serve on that committee, who will be up on the dais. And the other members of council will either be in the audience or back in our council chambers. And so it will be very specific, the participation and the discussion on those committee nights of that committee proper. So just to let people know about that. We will still have opportunities for comment. It could perhaps mean that more of our comments, questions, and things like that might happen from the public and from other non-committee council members on the first readings of ordinances when they come forward. So thanks as we work our way through this. Our other item of business is to have a motion to accept the auditor's February 2018 financial reports.
So moved.
Could I have a second?
Second.
Okay. So this is for approval of the auditor's February 2018 reports. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Okay. And then we now have an opportunity for citizens to speak on legislative items and city services not covered on the agenda. Is there anybody in the audience that's intending or wanting to speak tonight? You have 3 minutes if you would like to do that. Okay. Seeing none, I'd entertain a motion for adjourning.
So moved.
Second?
Second.
Good.
Why not?
All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Okay, thank you. And we are adjourned at 7:50. We'll see you next Monday night. Thank you.